Now, weeks after he was released by the interim government of Bangladesh, led by a Nobel laureate, Professor Muhammad Yunus, a radical Islamist, Yunus Jasimuddin Rahmani, he's the leader of a radical Islamist organization called Ansarul Bangla Team. He's issued a call for Pakistan and Afghanistan to join his fight for Jammu and Kashmir. Now, this radical Islamist in Bangladesh, convicted in murder cases, but has been released on parole. He's a supporter of Al-Qaeda. And of course, a regional affiliate called the Al-Qaeda of this region, of the Indian subcontinent. Rahmani has pledged to back the Khalistan separatist movement. He's also urged Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee to declare independence from Modi rule. All of these remarks, apparently recorded from a hospital bed, they're widely circulating on social media. But the question remains that first radical Islamists were targeting Hindus in Bangladesh. Unfortunately, some of them remain at large. They're being encouraged. And now they're targeting India, or talking about targeting India.
Hardline Islamist cleric in Bangladesh, Jasimuddin Rahmani, head of Ansarullah Bangla team, spewing venom against India, calling for jihad for Jammu and Kashmir. Rahmani was released from prison on the instructions of the Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus government's order after the ouster of Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Rahmani also appealed to Mamata Banerjee to declare independence from India. Rahmani's radical Islamist outfit, Ansarullah Bangla team, is linked to the banned terrorist organization Al-Qaeda and preaches the formation of an Islamic state. In his speech, Rahmani gave a 5-point action plan to break India. Support Khalistan terror. Jihad for freedom of Jammu and Kashmir. Ask Mamata Banerjee to declare independence. Calls to cut off Shiliguri corridor. Raise Islamist flag on Red Fort in Delhi. Rahmani was locked up in the high-security Kasimpur prison in Bangladesh for abetting the murder of a blogger in Bangladesh in 2013. He has been accused of ordering the killing of several atheist bloggers in Bangladesh between 2013 and 2016.
These kind of futile statements coming from Bangladesh and being given this opportunity to talk against India, I think is against India's interest, and I think India will not tolerate. It will require a lot of beefing up of our border security once again. It will require a much greater coordination with the government of Bangladesh, which it is not good for them also.
Rahmani was convicted in 2015 and jailed. However, Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus' government not only withdrew charges against several opposition leaders, including Begum Khalida Zia and Jamaat-e-Islami Amir Shafiqur Rahman, but also ordered the release of Rahmani.
और यहाँ के बाद में उसने बड़े पैमाने पर हिंदुस्तान को बर्बाद करने की धमकी दी है। सबसे पहले वो कहता है कि हिंदुस्तान से कश्मीर को और पंजाब को अलग किया जाएगा, और कश्मीरियों को कहे और पंजाबियों को कहे कि अभी समय आ गया है कि हिंदुस्तान के खिलाफ बगावत करो। साथ ही साथ वो कह रहा है कि चाइना को हम बोलेंगे कि जो चिकन नेक एरिया है उसको ब्लॉक करे, ताकि नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न जो स्टेट्स हैं वो हिंदुस्तान के खिलाफ बगावत करें और अपनी फ्रीडम मांगे। मुझे नहीं लगता कि एक आतंकवादी जो बांग्लादेश में बैठा हुआ है उसके कहने से हिंदुस्तान बर्बाद हो सकता है।
There are apprehensions that radical Islamist elements could try and create trouble in the states bordering Bangladesh, with the interim government in Dhaka showing no visible steps to crack down on radical Islamists like Rahmani. Bureau Report, India Today.
So trying to incite trouble in Jammu and Kashmir, calling for creation of Khalistan, telling Mamata Banerjee to declare independence, threatening India with an uprising. Now, these radical Islamists in Bangladesh, like Jasimuddin Rahmani, leader of this radical Islamist organization called AMT, Ansarul Bangla team, weeks after being released by the government of this Nobel laureate and such a well-respected Nobel laureate, Professor Muhammad Yunus, the question is, why are such elements being released in Bangladesh? What should one make of the rise of radicalism in Bangladesh? Is Bangladesh under Professor Muhammad Yunus on the road to becoming like Pakistan 2.0? Remember, India helped create Bangladesh in 1971 and get them separated from Pakistan. Joining me on India First is Tasmia Nuya Ahmed, a journalist who joins us from Bangladesh, Ambassador Veena Sikri's former High Commissioner to Bangladesh, Abhijit Iyer Mitra is a respected foreign policy analyst. But Tasmia Ahmed, if I may come to you first, under the leadership of Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus, radical Islamists seem to be running right in Bangladesh. What should one make of what Jasimuddin Rahmani says about India, madam?
Actually, this issue is very sensitive, and the interim government has just taken up the responsibility just a few days back, just a month. So the age is very short, but it's a very new government. So the challenges are, of course, there. So we hope that the interim government led by Professor Muhammad Yunus will, of course, look into these matters, and because these are security issues not only for Bangladesh, but for the entire Asia and also the other parts of the world. Because these threats are not good for the people of this country and also for the other parts of Asia and also not for the other parts of the world as well. So Professor Muhammad Yunus is a well-reputed leader. So
Okay.
I hope he will take care of these matters and these concerns raised by different groups. So this will be taken care of by this government.
Let's sincerely hope so. Ambassador Sikri, both India and Bangladesh, I mean, when Sheikh Hasina was at the helm of affairs, Bangladesh was seen as one of India's strongest partners in the region. Suddenly, things seem to have just turned 360, 180 degrees. What do you make of this threat, and how seriously should India take this threat of rising radicalism in Bangladesh, ma'am?
Well, I think it's a very serious threat for the simple reason that it is becoming more and more evident every day that really it is the Jamaat-e-Islami, the extremist political party Jamaat-e-Islami, which is really behind all these changes in Bangladesh. And it is the agenda of the Jamaat-e-Islami that is being carried out every day. For example, one of the most notable examples of this Jamaat-e-Islami being in charge was that 2 or 3 days ago, a lawyer, Tajul Islam, who actually had been defending the Jamaat-e-Islami in the war crime trial that had been initiated by former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, is now become the chief prosecutor in the same war crimes tribunal. So the person who was the defending lawyer of the Jamaat-e-Islami is now becoming the chief prosecutor. So we know that where the policies of this government are headed, because who is behind these policies. Now, the point is that the release of a person like Jasimuddin Rahmani, who is definitely anti-India, definitely breathing, remarks which are against the sovereignty and territorial integrity of India. And there's not been a single comment by anybody in the interim government or around the interim government or even in the media or any kind of a reaction as though this is perfectly normal. Now, this is what I find very surprising, because there are 2 points here. First of all, this is an interim government. At the moment, it has no constitutional validity and no legality at all, because it is just there. The fact of having a caretaker government was originally in the Bangladesh constitution, but that clause was removed by former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. So even that clause under which gave a justification for an interim government is not there. The people in Bangladesh are saying that now the Supreme Court has been entirely changed. As you know, there was a gherav by the students, and that's how the Supreme Court got changed. But the new judges have been told to look at this question about restoring the Article 15, I think it was, which was banned, which was allowing for caretaker government. But even if that clause is restored, it will still be a caretaker government mandated only to hold elections.
Absolutely.
And for no other changes at all. So I just cannot understand on which basis parole is being given, on which basis a jail is being broken into. I cannot understand. These are matters which
And he's not the only one. 20 hardline criminals have been released and several radical leaders have been released. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, it just appears as if radical Islamists are ruling the roost, riding piggyback on a students' movement. So while they expect the world to focus on a students' movement, it's actually a radical Islamist movement that's taking over or has taken over Bangladesh. And for India, there's trouble now on another front. So 2.5 fronts so far. Now we're talking about 3.5 front tension for us.
Yes, Gaurav. You know, when Sheikh Hasina was going hard against the BNP leadership, Not that the BNP was ever very pro-India or anything. Khalida Zia blames us for the assassination of her husband. I don't know why, but she does. It's pathological with her. The problem has always been that when she went hard after the BNP, there was a vacuum in the opposition. And we knew exactly who was going to fulfill it, the Jamaat-e-Islami.
Yeah.
And the Jamaat-e-Islami gained power how? They first started protesting against the Statue of Justice. The lady with scales blindfolded outside the Bangladesh Supreme Court. And they wanted that removed. They succeeded. Then obviously the anti-idolatry campaign spread to Sheikh Hasina's father, who they viewed as being idolized in contravention to Islam and things like that. Now, it's very important to remember the Jamaat-e-Islami are the remnants of the Razakars. The party openly supported the Pakistan army during the Bangladesh independence war. Was Sheikh Hasina justified in going after them? 100%. Many of them have their blood-stained hands. In this case, what is truly surprising is that they are letting off people not for anti-India things. I can totally understand how those ministers who were convicted of supplying Alpha arms, 10 trucks worth of arms were let go.
Yes.
This is a man who is under trial for the killing of a Bangladeshi blogger.
Yes.
They are literally letting go of people with Bangladeshi blood on their hands. It was very clear from the day the student movement started. Gaurav, believe it or not, no student movement anywhere in the world has ever had any kind of popular support. We knew from day one, all the ground mobilization was being done by the Jamaat-e-Islami number one, and the much reduced, much diminished in stature BNP number two. There was never any doubt about this. If you saw ground reports coming in, mostly on Twitter, of who was organizing it, these were all people who were Jamaat-e-Islami affiliated.
And yet,
this is not
so
surprising.
many turned a blind eye to a radical Islamist movement taking over Bangladesh, and some even in India tried to pass it off as a students' movement, monsoon revolution in Bangladesh. But Tasmia Ahmed, is an anti-India feeling deliberately being fanned in Bangladesh? Does Bangladesh actually, truly want to get close to a basket case like Pakistan? Does Bangladesh actually want to become a radical Islamist terror state like Pakistan?
Not at all, not at all. Actually, we acknowledge the contribution of India during our liberation war in 1971, and we can never turn our country into those type of countries, the names you are mentioning. Of course not. And the people of Bangladesh understand and will, of course, do whatever it is required to save Bangladesh from these Islamist groups. And I hope from this interim government, they will take care of these concerns, proper consideration will be given to ensure that these Islamist radical groups are not controlling the government or not a member of the cabinet. So,
but that is not true. Look at the religious leaders who are becoming members of the cabinet, or those who wield power in Bangladesh today. Or Ambassador Sikri, if I may draw you in, Pakistan has just announced that people from Bangladesh do not need to pay any visa fee to travel to Pakistan. So Pakistan is moving in. The Chinese ambassador has moved in a very big way, meeting not just opposition leaders, but even meeting Jamaat-e-Islami and talking about, closer links with an organization like Jamaat-e-Islami. So China and Pakistan would clearly want another base against India. But is that what Bangladesh under Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus will end up becoming, another radical Islamist state?
This is a great worry that is emerging every single day, because as you said, we would not have expected from Professor Muhammad Yunus that he would have supported any of these actions, but he has supported them. And this release on parole, and not only you release on parole, but when the person is making such virulent anti-Indian statements calling for the breaking up of India, there is no response from anybody in the government. No response to say this is not a good statement, please, we do not agree with it, etc., etc. We will punish him. Nothing of that kind. And he killed bloggers in his own country.
Yes.
And the Pakistan ambassador is going around meeting the advisors of the government and telling of the Bangladesh government and telling them that we have to resolve the unsettled issues of 1971. So this is a kind of an effort completely to reverse what was in 1971, because the Jamaat-e-Islami, which was with Pakistan at that time, is now totally the power behind the throne or the power on the throne in Bangladesh, and we have to see how they are trying to reverse the history. All the monuments destroyed were those of Sheikh Mujib. All the evidences of the Liberation War of 1971 are being destroyed, the statues are being beheaded, and there's no reference at all. Even Gana Bhavan, anything to do with Dhanmandi 32, the place where Sheikh Mujib was assassinated, has been burnt to the ground. The Indian Cultural Center has been burnt to the ground. Now we need to have some kind of explanation. In Bangladesh itself, there is no law and order as yet, no control. 10,000 Ansars have been, removed from their posts. The police has not yet joined in their posts. So it's a great matter of worry what is happening. Of course, the Indian government has said very clearly that we will deal with the government. Our High Commissioner in Dhaka has called on the on the chief advisor and the other advisors. Projects are being discussed and so on. The normal diplomatic activity is continuing. But we have to remember that this government has a constitutional responsibility after the matter has been restored to hold elections.
Absolutely.
And only elected government can do reforms, and only elected government can release people. And if you release people, the reasoning in the court, why the person is being released, all that needs to be seen. It's not happening.
Yes, and Abhijit, does this mean rise in radicalism and terrorism in states along the India-Bangladesh border, rising radicalism both in Pakistan and Bangladesh, and of course some elements within our country? It just indicates that India is heading for much tougher times in the months ahead.
Absolutely, Gaurav, because, Muhammad Yunus has a long history of coochie-cooing with military dictators. He certainly wasn't on the wrong side of Hussein Muhammad Ershad when he was the last military dictator. And he's, there was this whole set of things. First, if you remember, there was the Gulshan massacre in the cafe where militants went in. They were only armed with knives, if you remember. There were a few guns, but they were conserving bullets. And 6 months later, within just 6 months, he had the siege of this outhouse somewhere outside Dhaka, where they had grown so sophisticated that they had wire-triggered bombs, they had laser-like triggered bombs, they were replete with AR-57 assault rifles and things like that. So the escalation that happened very quickly. It happened at the same time because the ISI, we know, infiltrated the Rohingya movement. There's a whole open source intelligence report about this. And when that particular migration happened, there was a very significant increase in the number of Islamists, armed support to Islamists. Now, we need to go to Muhammad Yunus's trial. Remember, he is still under trial for financial irregularity. He is extremely grateful to anybody that has got him off that trial for financial irregularity. He is completely beholden to them. And, we shouldn't get fooled by a Nobel Prize. A Nobel Prize means you're good at something. Talk to Russia. Russia hired 2 American Nobel laureates to help them out with their economy in 1991. And look what happened to the economy, Russian economy after 1991. This notion that people who are academically smart.
No, it just brings you to that big point. A Magsaysay award, a Nobel Prize, why are they awarded to some people and what does it lead to? And are you then peddling somebody's agenda in your own country? These are many, many issues that the world will now have to grapple with when you look at the situation developing in India's neighborhood and closer home. We'll be tracking the story very closely. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me.